Witches are some of the oldest figures in storytelling. One of the earliest examples of a witch appears in Homer's Odyssey, with the character Circe, a powerful sorceress who uses her potions to turn Odysseus's men into pigs. Another early depiction of a witch appears in the Book of Samuel in the Hebrew Bible, the Witch of Endor. In the Book of Samuel, the Witch of Endor summons the spirit of the prophet Samuel at King Saul's request as he seeks guidance on defeating the impeding Philistine army. Even today, witches remain hugely popular across every medium, from movies and shows, from games, and even to music. Over time, though, they've become far more caricatured than they once were. When we hear the word witch, most of us picture an old green-skinned hag flying on a broomstick in black robes, an image cemented by Margaret Hamilton's performance as the Wicked Witch of the West in the 1939 classic film The Wizard of Oz. The story we're going to be looking at today subverts that image, offering one of the most terrifying renditions of witches in modern fiction. Today, we're going to be reading Wytches by Snyder. As a kid, Snyder used to hike the Pennsylvania woods with his friends. They would come up with crazy, scary stories about a satanic family that lived out in the woods to try and scare each other. Years later, when Snyder went on vacation to that same house, he was walking through the woods to see if the trail he and his friends would walk was still there. While walking the old trail, he saw a moving object that looked vaguely human, which made Snyder think that there was something in the forest that had been waiting for him to return. This got him thinking about a monster that lives out in the woods that doesn't hunt you, but waits for you to return to them. This would lay the groundwork for what would eventually become Wytches. Now, Snyder didn't really implement a ton of actual folklore of witches into the story. Instead, he liked the idea of crafting his own mythos. He was, however, inspired by some Stephen King stories, especially ones where he would pit humans against monsters, like Salem's Lot or The Mist. Snyder also chose to have the witches not possess any magical abilities, and instead be a bestial, primal creature that lives deep in the woods. There's nothing magical about the witches here. It's all just ancient science and alchemy. Wytches was illustrated by Mark Simpson, known primarily by his pen name, Jock. The artwork in this story is incredible. Jacques' art style borders on abstract, while staying traditional enough to understand what's going on. Every panel in this comic comes with a splatter effect that completely offsets the dark tones. This causes a kind of jarring effect that's hard to describe, but kind of hypnotic when you read it. This is one of the most terrifying comic books I've ever read, so what better way to kick off the Halloween season than with this? This is Wytches by Snyder. The quiet of the woods is disturbed by the screaming of a frightened woman begging for help. The woman is somehow stuck within the hollow of a tree. We don't know how this woman became stuck within the tree, since the opening is very small, and would likely not be large enough for even a young child to fit through. The woman is covered in scratches and lacerations. She's bleeding profusely from her nose and ears. The woman looks down, and we see that within the tree, she's dangling over a bottomless pit. From within the pit comes a beastly noise, like the chattering of teeth, growing louder as it draws closer. Panicked, the woman tries clawing her way out of the hollow. Despite all her efforts, she's only able to get one arm free. "Mom?" A soft voice calls from the woods. The woman is found by her young son, Timothy. The woman tells her son to pick up a rock and help her break her way out of the hollow. Timothy asks his mom how she got stuck in the tree in the first place. She says that she was pledged. Timothy grabs the rock and smashes his mom across the face. The boy looks upon his mother with sorrowful eyes and says, "Pledged is pledged." Just moments later, a pale and ghastly hand wraps their fingers around the woman's face and drags her into the ground as she lets out one final blood-curdling scream. Cray family, August, 1919. Rooks family, September 6th, 2014. Sailor and her parents have moved into the town of Litchfield, New Hampshire. They're hoping to get a fresh start following an incident involving Sailor and a school bully named Annie. Sailor has always been an anxious kid. Since the incident, her anxieties have become crippling. The only person who's really able to calm her down is her father, Charlie. Sailor's worried about starting a new school. She says she's afraid the other kids will know about her past. Charlie tells her everything will be okay. He says that if her anxiety gets really bad, she can always call him. After waiting at the bus stop with Sailor, Charlie waves goodbye as she rides off on her first day of school. He walks back to the house, where he sees his wife Lucy waiting for him on the front porch. Charlie's worried that the other kids may already know about Sailor's past. Lucy says they probably will, but they have an awesome kid and have nothing to worry about. As Sailor finds a seat on the bus, the other kids snicker behind her back and call her a freak. Sailor finds a seat at the back of the bus and notices something out of the window. She finds a strange-looking woman staring at her from the woods. She calls Sailor a pledge, which is what Timmy called his mom before she was dragged into the hollow. Sailor isn't sure what this means yet. But she does know one thing for sure. It can't be good. Sailor's father, Charlie, is a children's book author, working on a new book about a kid who gets lost in a magical amusement park. Charlie's publisher and lifelong friend Reggie doesn't like the direction the story is going and tells Charlie that he may want to reconsider the next installment. But Charlie is stubborn, and he isn't going to budge no matter what the publishers say. After some back and forth, Reggie surrenders and tells Charlie to go with the original plan. Reggie asks how the family is settling into their new home. Charlie says that Lucy is settled in fine enough, but Sailor seems to be having a much harder time. Lucy taps Charlie on the shoulder to show him something in his office. Charlie tells Reg to call him back, and we see that a deer has stumbled upon the Rook home and has wandered right into Charlie's studio. While in science class, a girl sitting next to Sailor warns her not to get on the science teacher's bad side, or else he'll bruise her with his, well, I'll just let you read it for yourself. Sailor tries to introduce herself, but her classmate already knows who she is. She asks Sailor point blank if she really killed a girl, like everyone says she did. This abrupt line of questioning puts Sailor into a trance and brings her back to the incident. A year before the Rooks moved into town, Sailor was being relentlessly bullied by a girl named Annie. One day, Sailor vented her frustration about being bullied on social media. This greatly angered Annie, so one day after school, Annie drags Sailor out in the woods, against her will, and starts torturing her. As tears roll down her eyes, Sailor asks Annie why she hates her so much. Sailor had never done anything to her to deserve this level of torment. Annie says she hates Sailor simply for being born. She hates her face, her quote-unquote gay little style. She just hates everything about her. Her mere existence angers Annie. Finally, having enough with the torment, Sailor brandishes a pocket knife in an attempt to scare Annie away. Annie, being far more sinister than Sailor could have ever imagined, takes out a pistol and tells Sailor that she's going to make her regret ever being born. Before things could get any worse, Annie hears a noise coming from behind them. She smashes Sailor in the face with a pistol, thinking she must have told someone they were there. Sailor swears with tears continuing to roll down her face she didn't tell anyone. The noise sounds like chittering teeth, and it's coming from within a tree. Annie goes to investigate, when suddenly, these long ghoulish arms emerge from the tree and grab her. She begs Sailor to help her while she's being dragged deeper within the tree. Sailor is frozen in complete terror as Annie disappears. Back in the present, the deer that wandered into Charlie's office emits a strange screeching yell, and for some unexplained reason, bites its own tongue off, almost like it's connected to Sailor's suffering. Later that night, Charlie sits with Sailor in her room, trying his best to help her adjust to the move. Sailor brings up Annie again and asks her father if she was responsible for Annie's disappearance. While Sailor had no idea what caused Annie's death, she can't help but feel responsible. She hated Annie, and rightfully so. She made Sailor's life a living hell. But is it possible that Sailor's hate could have fueled whatever was in the woods that day? Sailor told the police exactly what she saw, but given the blow she sustained to the head from Annie's pistol, they chalked her story up as a hallucination. Sailor can't help but shake the feeling that she's somehow to blame for Annie's death. After failing to cheer Sailor up, Charlie snaps and raises his voice. He says just because she wanted Annie to die doesn't mean Sailor was the one to kill her. After tensions settle down, Charlie apologizes for losing his cool and says it's just been a long day. He goes downstairs and tells Lucy that Sailor still thinks Annie's death was her fault. Lucy says they knew they were never going to get a completely clean restart after everything that happened. She says that as long as they stay together, everything will be fine. Back upstairs, Sailor hears something moving outside her bedroom window. She goes to investigate and finds a monstrous and bloody version of Annie stalking her and calling her name. Sailor's parents hear her screaming from downstairs. Charlie runs up to investigate. Outside the Rook residence, we see the same strange bald woman from earlier, making some kind of rune made out of animal teeth in the grass. The next day, Charlie's trying to fix the chairlift for Lucy, while Reggie goes over the latest draft of Charlie's story. After getting a small shock from a live circuit, Charlie loses his cool, and Reggie has to restrain him before he does any more damage. Reggie notices how on edge Charlie is, and asks him what's going on. Charlie tells him about the break-in. After Charlie heard Sailor screaming, he busts into her room to find Sailor on the floor, and her window busted open. Charlie asked Sailor what happened, and she said it was Annie. Whatever it was caused a huge gash on the side of Sailor's neck. They took her to the doctor to get checked out. The doctors have no idea what could have caused this injury, but Sailor is convinced it's a bite. Even stranger, Sailor started developing a lump on her neck where the wound was. They took her back to the doctor again, but they weren't sure what was causing it. The move was supposed to make things easier, but if anything, they've only gotten worse. Charlie's starting to think that the move might have been a mistake. He never even wanted to move. It was Lucy who really wanted it. She was the one who decided they would all move to Litchfield. Charlie still feels guilt for not being there when Lucy had the accident that left her paralyzed. Reggie tells him that it's not his fault. There's nothing he could have done. Charlie wasn't always the attentive father and husband he is now. He has many regrets in his life, and this move may just be the last one Charlie has to add to that list. While in swim class, the girl from Sailor's science lab apologizes to her for asking about Annie's disappearance. The girl's name is Melina. She never meant to come off in any bad way. She just wanted to be Sailor's friend and didn't know how to approach her. This cheers Sailor up some, and she even cracks a smile. While she talks to Melina, Sailor notices something out of the corner of her eye. It's Annie. She's back, and stalking Sailor again. She seems to be the only person that can actually see the monster, as everyone else acts oblivious. Her swim instructor snaps Sailor out of her trance and barks at her to get in the water. Before the accident that left her paralyzed, Lucy Rook was a promising doctor with a bright future ahead of her. But after her accident, her body wasn't able to keep up with the physical demands. Now she's nothing more than a standard nurse, and even then, there's still many things she can't do. This has caused a lot of heartache for her, but she tries to make the best out of a bad situation and help any way she can. The patient she's treating is a young boy named Dylan, who, much like Lucy, was involved in a terrible accident that left him in a coma. Dylan suddenly wakes up when he hears that Lucy was involved in a similar accident. Lucy says that she lost control of her car after avoiding a deer in the road, but Dylan knows she's lying. He says that he can smell it on her. Someone was pledged for Lucy. Dylan's right, and it wasn't a deer. It was something else. Something Lucy has never seen before in her life. Something hideous. While underwater, Sailor has a vision of eyes peering at her from the tree hollows. Her bandage falls off, and we see what looks like an eye growing from her neck wound. She jumps out of the water and starts clawing at her neck. Melina calms her down and tells her that there's nothing there. While in his office, Charlie gets a worried call from Lucy. She asks her husband if Sailor is home yet. Charlie replies that she's still out, but is expecting to be home very soon. He attempts to calm Lucy down and says that they have nothing to worry about. Lucy says that Sailor's biopsy results came back from her neck, and the doctors want to retest her. Apparently, the initial test results showed that the tissue was old. Older than Sailor. It was like the skin tissue of an old woman. There must have been some kind of mistake. Charlie hears someone moving upstairs and figures it must be Sailor, but he's not sure how she could have gotten in since he didn't see her walk through the front door, so he goes up to investigate. He walks into Sailor's room and finds the old woman that was stalking Sailor standing on her bed. The woman attacks Charlie with her prosthetic leg. She pins him to the ground and burns a piece of fabric in her hand and tells Charlie that he never had a daughter, before blowing the ash from the fabric into his face. On his way back from Charlie's house, Reggie passes his school bus. He looks in the driver's side window and sees Sailor driving the bus. She crashes the bus and starts screaming at whatever is stalking her from the woods and demands to know what they want from her. Reggie finds Sailor and asks her what she's doing. He says he'll take her home, when suddenly we hear that strange, teeth-chattering noise again coming from the trees. And a moment later, these tall, grotesque figures begin to appear from them behind the tree lines. Reggie tells Sailor to get behind them, while these strange creatures begin circling around them. We see the Rooks, Charlie and Lucy, along with the Litchfield Sheriff's Department, scavenging through the woods looking for Sailor. Sheriff Peddle says that most kids run away upset like Sailor did, usually end up back home soon enough. Charlie says that Sailor has been having a really hard time since the bite. He then brings up the break-in that happened with a strange woman. Sheriff Peddle already investigated the Rook's house and didn't find any evidence of a break-in. You get a flashback to that night when it happened. After the strange woman blew the ash into Charlie's face, she says that someone has pledged Sailor to the monsters in the woods. Soon enough, she'll go to them, like she's in a trance. This explains why Sailor stole the bus in the first place. The woman says that someone in town will put a hex on Charlie and make him forget Sailor ever existed, but she's going to make sure that doesn't happen. When Charlie asks the woman what she's even talking about, she says she's talking about the Wytches. The woman takes an acupuncture needle and pierces herself in the breast with it. She tells Charlie to find her when he wakes up. She then takes the giant needle and stabs Charlie in the stomach with it. He ends up passing out and wakes up when the cops arrive. Strangely, he has no mark on his stomach from the needle, leaving the cops to believe Charlie imagined the whole thing. Frustrated with Sheriff Peddle's lackluster response, Charlie storms off into the woods, determined to find his daughter. While hiking through the forest, Charlie hears someone whispering for help, but he doesn't know where it's coming from. He follows the noise to a tree hollow, where he finds his friend Reggie inside. Charlie picks up a rock and tries smashing Reggie out. The sheriff walks up behind Charlie with his weapon drawn and asks what's going on. Charlie says that someone's stuck inside and they need to get him out. Sheriff Peddle helps Charlie to open the hollow, but when they look inside, no one's there. Reggie was there, or at least Charlie thought he was. He thinks he's starting to go insane. Peddle tells Charlie to go home and get some rest. More likely than not, Sailor will show up eventually. Charlie heads home and starts thinking of what to do next. Suddenly, he starts feeling the sharp pain on the side of his stomach. He lifts up his shirt to see that his veins have begun to etch a message into his skin. Here. The strange woman said Charlie would know where to find her when the time came, but just here doesn't really tell him much. Or does it? He pulls out a map and finds Here Point. This must be where he needs to go. September 20th, 2011. A young sailor goes to look for her dad after he storms out of the house in a drunken stupor. Charlie has a history of alcohol abuse. Sailor finds her dad in an abandoned amusement park, sitting in a lone car on a Ferris wheel. Charlie says that he can't stand Sailor's anxiety anymore. It caused them so much stress and has been desperately trying to find a way to break her out of it. Sailor begs her father to come down, but Charlie says he has a better idea. He wants Sailor to get over her fears and climb up to him on the Ferris wheel if she wants him to come down. She starts climbing the giant wheel and begs her father to get down. She's terrified of heights, and she knows that her father is trying to get her to confront her fears. Sailor begs her dad to get down. She even promises that she won't be scared of anything anymore, but Charlie says that isn't good enough. She needs to keep climbing. Once Sailor makes it to Charlie's car, she begs him to grab her hand, afraid she's going to fall, but Charlie berates the poor girl and tells her to stop being a chicken. A now angry Sailor decides that if her dad wants her to climb the Ferris wheel, that she's going to climb all the way to the top just out of spite, no matter how risky it is. He tells her to stop before she gets hurt, but she doesn't listen. Sailor ends up slipping and begins to fall. Charlie's able to catch her just in time, but if he had just been a second too late, Sailor would have fallen right to her death. October 9th, 2014. Charlie runs downstairs to show Lucy the message in his skin, but once he gets there, it's gone. Lucy says it looks like Charlie has a bunch of broken blood vessels. It was that strange woman. She did this somehow. He needs to find her and find out if she knows where Sailor is. Lucy tells him they need to slow down and think about their next move carefully. After an incident at the park, Charlie swore that he'd be different. He swore that he'd never let his actions put his daughter in harm's way again, but he can't help but think this is somehow all his fault. He shouldn't have pushed Sailor the way he did. Speaking of Sailor, she wakes up in complete darkness, with no idea where she is. She finds a pack of matches in her pocket and lights one up to see in the darkness. She's underground, probably dragged down there by those monsters. She's sitting upon a mountain of kids' clothes. As much as Sailor feels her anxiety building within her, she musters up the courage and gets moving. She puts a pair of shoes on her hands and starts scaling up the narrow pathway. Back on the surface, Charlie finds Here Point, near the shoreline, where he finds a demolished house and decides to investigate further. He finds a bunch of cooking pots with dead rats inside. The strange woman, whose name is actually Clara, finds Charlie around her stuff and tells him to get rid of the knife he brought while aiming a gun at his head. Charlie drops the knife and the woman throws a noose at him. She tells him to hang the noose around a beam or she'll shoot him. She tells Charlie that the witches have Sailor. That's what she was trying to warn him about. She explains that the witches aren't like the ones from the movies, with green skin and pointy hats. Some people think their evolution gone wrong, mutations from thousands of years ago. But whatever they are now, they are far from human. They're cannibalistic monsters who live underground. Charlie asks what these things want with Sailor, and Clara says that these things only eat people who've been pledged to them. Kids are their favorite. They take you to the burrow and cook you in their cauldron. Someone has pledged Sailor to these witches. If you pledge someone, they give you whatever you want. They can cure any illness, or make you live far beyond any human capability. Clara tells Charlie to test the noose to make sure it's tight enough. When he refuses, Clara fires a bullet, grazing Charlie's ear. She tells him to move out of the way. She's going to hang herself. Her mission was to clear the burrow in Litchfield, but it's too late now. Charlie's going to have to be the one to do it. She tells him he's going to need to find someone who trafficked with the witches and get them to show him where the burrow is. There's a satchel underneath the board that has something called stink in it. It's a concoction that Clara made that will make someone invisible to the witches while they have it on their skin. Along with the stink is a list of names, people who have given pledges to the witches, which is nearly everyone in the entire town of Litchfield. They're all in on it. Clara ties the noose around her neck and tells Charlie to go find his daughter. She then pushes the chair underneath her and hangs herself. Back home, Charlie starts going through the list of names he got from Clara, thinking what to do next. Lucy finds him and asks him what happened to his ear. He tells Lucy about the list of names he got from Clara. He says he's going to find Sailor, no matter how dangerous it is. Lucy admires Charlie's bravery. But there's just one question. Who's Sailor? Lucy's memory has been wiped, and she has no idea who Sailor is. The only reason Charlie remembers is because Clara put a block on him. Charlie starts freaking out. He doesn't know what he's going to do anymore. Sheriff Fettle stops in to see what all the noise is about. Charlie explains that his wife doesn't remember who their own daughter is anymore. Fettle says that everything will be okay, but before they do anything, he wants to check out Charlie's ear. This reminds Charlie about the list of names he got from Clara. He goes to check on something, and what do you know? Petal's name is on the list, underlined and in giant red letters. Petal starts getting suspicious and tries sneaking up on Charlie. He lunges back and tackles Petal to the ground, getting his pistol away from him in the process. Now, holding the sheriff's pistol to his own head, Charlie tells him that he's going to show him where the burrow is and to take him to Sailor, who, while all this is going on, is still down in the burrow. Climbing didn't work, so she's back at square one. She breaks the lens of her glasses and stuffs the broken shard in her pocket in case she needs to use it as a weapon later on. Petal takes Charlie right to the burrow. He said if Charlie knew what was best for him, he would switch sides. The witches are able to grant almost anything you ask for. Sheriff Petal has been giving pledges over to the witches for years. In return, they've added many more years to his life. He tells Charlie he'd never be able to guess his age, even if he tried. The sheriff takes Charlie to the entrance of the burrow, which is marked by a disfigured tree. Rooks family, September 25th, 2011. Lucy is in a coma after being involved in a horrible car accident. Charlie tries to comfort his grieving daughter, but she isn't having it. She still hasn't forgiven him for what happened at the fair. Sailor tells her dad how her anxiety affects her daily. She says that if she could change, if she could somehow rewire her brain to stop herself from feeling like the world was going to crash in around her, she would have. She didn't need her drunken father to do that. Sailor used to love her dad. He'd be the first person in the world she would run to whenever she was feeling scared or anxious. But something changed. Ever since Charlie started drinking, it's like he's a completely different person. So with her mom in a coma, and her dad being a wreck himself, Sailor feels like she has no one to turn to. She's like no matter what she does, she'll never be good enough for Charlie. She even admitted that she secretly wished that her parents would have another child, just so Charlie would have another chance at having the daughter he always wanted. This crushes Charlie, and he finally starts to see what a monster he's been to his own daughter. He tells her that he never, even for a moment, thought of replacing her with another kid. Sailor is exactly everything he ever wanted, flaws and all. He promises never to abandon her, like he did before. Back in the present day, Charlie ties Petal up and tells him if he finds out he's lying, he'll kill him. The sheriff says the ginger roots growing from the tree are a dead giveaway that they're in the right spot. Ginger only grows in the ground, not on trees. But the witches, with their otherworldly science, can grow roots out of trees to mark their territory. This is where the myth of witches living in the gingerbread house comes from. Charlie takes out the stink and starts rubbing it all over his body. Sheriff Petal tells Charlie to put some in his mouth too, so the witches can't smell his breath. He also advises him to use his flare guns wisely to fend off the creatures. Charlie asks Petal why he's giving him any advice, and the sheriff says that he's telling him because in the end, it won't matter. He's basically giving one of those, I'm the villain, and I'm going to tell you everything because you're going to die anyway speeches. Tired of hearing Petal's voice, Charlie shoots the sheriff in the head to shut him up once and for all. Charlie finishes rubbing himself down with the stink and descends into the burrow. He makes it to the bottom and starts working his way through the labyrinth to find Sailor. He stumbles upon a group of witches making some kind of potion in their cauldron. The witches pay no attention to Charlie standing behind them. The stink seems to be working. Charlie makes his way deeper into the burrow. Still, no sign of Sailor anywhere. Somehow, Sheriff Petal is still alive. He can sense Charlie moving through the burrow. He can feel him moving closer to Sailor. He's almost there. Charlie finally descends into the cauldron, where he finds Sailor's emaciated body, barely hanging on to life. The heat from the cauldron is causing the stink to melt off of him. If he doesn't move soon, the witches will be able to find him. Once they're out of the cauldron, Charlie gets Sailor to her feet and tells her they need to go. They hear that awful chittering sound, which can only mean one thing. The witches are coming. They have to get moving. The labyrinth is so dark, they can't even see where they're going. But they know if they stop moving, even for a moment, they won't make it out alive. The duo will find a hole, but have no idea where it leads. Charlie lights up a flare and throws it down the hole. This would be a mistake. Within the hole, they find a whole legion of witches. These are far bigger than the ones that they saw earlier, and they appear to be stuck within the walls. The distraction would prove to be detrimental, as a group of witches pop up behind them, and one even bites Charlie in the shoulder. He's able to get a flare off and make it back off. As long as he has a light, he's able to hold them back. The duo see an opening and push their way out of the tree hollow, fleeing from the burrow. But they are far from safe. The witches are still on their trail. The pair make it back home and surprise Lucy, who's sitting by the front door. Charlie tells his wife that they need to get going. They can't stay in Litchfield anymore. Mere seconds later, a barrage of bullets whiz past Charlie's head. It's the sheriff and the rest of the town, including Melina, Sailor's classmate. They all know about the witches, because they've all pledged up someone to them in return for something else. If they let Sailor get away, the witches aren't going to be very happy. They may even refuse to take any future pledges the town people give them. They can't let this happen. Petal says they have the house surrounded, and there's no way to escape. The witches are coming. Things are looking bad. Charlie tells Sailor to get down to the basement. They may be able to sneak out through the back. But as soon as Sailor stands in front of the basement stairs, Lucy, Sailor's own mother, smacks her on the back of the head with a pistol, sending the poor girl tumbling down the stairs. Charlie makes his way to the door, but Lucy shoots his leg, just barely grazing him. Charlie asks his wife what she's doing, and she replies, I'm saving us. Then, Lucy does something she hasn't been able to do in years, and stands up from her wheelchair. Charlie finally puts it all together. It was Lucy. She was the one who pledged Sailor to the witches. This is when it's revealed that Lucy's maiden name is Cray. The little boy from the beginning of the story was Lucy's great-grandfather. Lucy's ancestors conceived her great-grandfather to be pledged. That was until he turned the tables on them and gave them up to the witches. He then fled town and changed his name. Lucy thought her family was safe, but the witches, they feed off on negativity. So when Charlie started struggling with his alcoholism, the witches found them again and caused Lucy to get into that crash. We also learned that Lucy was pregnant the night of the crash. She thought that losing the baby would be enough, but the witches' hunger still wasn't satisfied. She had to give them something else. They wanted Sailor. But Lucy wasn't willing to give them her daughter, at least not at first. She pledged Annie, Sailor's school bully, hoping that would be enough. Of course, it wasn't. They wanted Sailor, and they weren't going to take anything else. So finally, Lucy stopped fighting. She gave them Sailor, and in return, they gave her the ability to walk again. She tells Charlie that if they both agree to give them Sailor, the witches can wipe their memories, letting them forget she ever existed. Lucy says they can finally have the fresh start they've been looking for. They don't have to run anymore. They can even start a new family if they want. All they have to do is give Sailor up. Lucy pleads with Charlie to see where she's coming from and join her in this new life. While all this is happening, Sailor makes her way back to the top of the stairs. She started to put two and two together and figures out what's going on. Time's quickly running out. The witches are here. At any moment, they'll bust through the windows and take Sailor. Charlie tells Sailor that everything will be okay and hands her a bottle of pledge. Time's out. The witches are busting their way through the house. Charlie gets on his knees and looks Sailor directly in the eyes. He doesn't say a word, and yet Sailor knows exactly what he's going to do. Charlie tells her to grab Clara's satchel and escape through the basement. He then takes the pledge and rubs it all over his face. Charlie is going to pledge himself to give Sailor a chance to escape. He then runs across the kitchen, making as much noise as he can, and rubs some of the pledge across Lucy's face. The monsters bust into the kitchen and start tearing Charlie and Lucy into pieces, while Sailor looks on in horror. She eventually gets herself together and escapes out of the basement window, where she finds Melina and the rest of the townspeople waiting for her. She says that pledged is pledged. Sailor agrees, but she's not the one who's going to be pledged tonight. She grabs a spraying nozzle and douses the residents in pledge, marking them all as witch food. Sailor makes a break for the car, but is stopped by Sheriff Peddle. He says that he's going to eat Sailor himself for all the trouble she's caused. Sailor digs into her pocket and grabs a piece of her broken glasses. She slashes Peddle across the throat and takes off from the car as the witches tear the townspeople into shreds. Rooks family, March 15th, 2013. It's been 2 years since Lucy's accident, 1 year before the Rooks family would move to Litchfield. Charlie's promoting his new children's book at the local bookstore. The Night Arcade isn't just about a little boy named Taylor who's stuck in a magical arcade. It's about feeling lost, not knowing where to go next. A familiar feeling for Charlie, who's given everything he has to get clean for his family. For Charlie, the Night Arcade helped him find his way back from the darkness. Sometimes home can be terrifying. For Charlie it was. When you feel like you don't have anywhere you truly belong, it makes you feel hopeless. That's what it did for Charlie. Luckily for him, there was one person who was able to light his path and show him the way back home, and that person was Sailor. He admits that he's scared of the future, so there's no way to know what can happen down the line. But he doesn't have to worry about Sailor. At least not anymore. If there's one thing that Charlie's learned, it's that Sailor has always been brave. Far braver than he ever was. In fact, she's the bravest person Charlie ever met, because no matter how dark the day seemed, no matter how bad her anxiety got, she never stopped moving forward. She always found her way home, no matter how many times she got lost. The Night Arcade isn't about a boy named Taylor. It's not about Charlie either. It's about Sailor. It's her story. It always has been. Beneath the Claws and the Gore, Wytches is a book about fear, specifically the fear of parenthood. Charlie and Lucy's desperate attempt to protect their daughter Sailor is a reflection of Snyder's own anxieties about being a parent. The Wytches become a physical stand-in for the cycle of trauma, guilt, and sacrifice that adults pass down to their children. It's also a story about adolescence and isolation. Sailor's panic attacks, outsider status, and sense of being hunted echo the real terror of growing up. The secret pledging system mirrors how communities collide to hide dark truths for their own benefit. By rooting these themes in a primal, woodland horror, Wytches becomes not just another monster comic, but a meditation on family, secrecy, and the cost of survival. Snyder has said in an interview that Wytches is about the wonder and terror of being a parent, how vulnerable you are to the world, how terrified you are that something could happen to your child, and how your own secret desires conflict with what you want from them. The monsters in the woods aren't just another set of horror creatures. They're a physical embodiment of those fears and compromises. This makes the story much more than a monster comic. This is also Sailor's coming-of-age story. That blend of folk horror and adolescent anxiety is what gives Wytches its bite. By grounding supernatural in intimate human fears, Snyder and Jock create a version of the witch myth that feels older, stranger, and more terrifying than anything we grew up with. Wytches is an amazing comic, and one of the scariest I've ever read. A lot of the genuine horror in this story comes from the witches themselves. Instead of your stereotypical green women with pointy hats, these witches are grotesque monstrosities that bear a striking resemblance to the Wendigo, a mythical cryptid from Algonquin folklore. In this story, the witches aren't brewing potions or playing tricks. They're beasts that stalk their prey from afar and manipulate regular people into doing their dirty work. This is by far the most terrifying rendition of a witch I've ever seen. If you've made this far in the video, I'm going to ask that you leave a like, comment, subscribe, because there's plenty more like this to come. I'd like to give a very special shout out to every name on the screen. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. If you'd like your name to be at that screen at the end of the video, or if you'd like to support me, then please consider checking out the Patreon. Along with shoutouts, you also get to vote in video polls and watch all my videos early before they're up on YouTube and uncensored. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.